Hashtags are used for everything from connecting people with like-minded political views to grouping pictures of Pinterest fails. But after posting a slideshow of your dog's birthday party with the caption #blessed, have you ever wondered, where does that symbol come from? Whether it's knowing what's trending on Twitter or trying to remember impossibly long wedding hashtags, we can all admit that our favorite little symbol serves an important function, grouping things together online. But let's play a little game with our hashtag bestie, the hashtag. Because when you see it here, it's a hashtag, but what about here? And what if we switch that? Or how about if you see it and you happen to be a programmer, or a chess player, or a coal miner, or a doctor? But before you get there, you have to hashtag ask yourself, where did that little sign come from and what are all of its meanings? And how did its current and most popular iteration, the infamous hashtag, get its start? Plus, how long are we gonna play out this hashtag weak sauce hashtag joke? We're done. So it seems like the first iteration of the hashtag goes all the way back to ancient Rome. Romans used the abbreviation LB, short for Libra, to mark the measurement for pound by weight, or Libra Pondo, which coincidentally explains why Libras are represented in astrology by scales. Over time, scribes and writers started drawing a line through the top of the LB to note that it was a contraction. And because not only doctors have bad handwriting, over time this contraction started to look more and more like the pound sign. In the late 17th century, Isaac Newton of the infamous Apple mythology started using the LB sign a lot. So much so that it was added to the early printing press. The dates of the exact shift from the pound contraction to the pound sign are fuzzy, but most agree it was around the 19th century. And what's interesting is that the hash sign has always had a unique relationship to technology. In the mid-20th century, developers at Bell Labs started to transition the old rotary phones to a new style of keyboard where people could just push the buttons. After fiddling around with different designs, they settled on a 3x4 square, but they were worried about the poor little lonely zero hanging out on the bottom row, so they decided to place our good buddy the asterisk on the left side and a diamond on the right, but the diamond didn't last long. In the 1960s, Bell Labs started trying to get phones to communicate with computers, and the diamond wasn't really a part of programming language because it wasn't on the QWERTY keyboard. So they swapped out the diamond for another symbol on the keyboard, the good old pound sign. Except for some weird reason they called it an octothorpe. Those of you old enough to remember when phones had buttons and not just touchscreens know that the pound sign was a pretty important key when dialing movie phone or any other kind of automated phone system, and in my case, it was the last button you pushed to find out if it was a snow day. So how did this humble symbol become arguably the most important and trendy sign of the 21st century? That's all thanks to a guy named Chris Messina. In the ancient history of August 23rd, 2007, Messina pitched an idea on Twitter. How do you feel about using #pound for groups, as in #barcamp? Messina, who was a developer at Google, thought that the hashtag had staying power since it would allow Twitter to create hyperlinks between groups. He said, Twitter didn't support groups, so I figured the next best thing to do was to use the text of a tweet to indicate topicality.
The first time I used a hashtag was in August of 2007. I was trying to solve the problem of how do we create groups on Twitter. And now, 7 years later, it's become a pretty big thing.
But Messina didn't want to invent a whole new symbol as phone keyboards were already equipped with the pound symbol, and it didn't have much use outside of the automated menus. A couple days after his tweet, a fellow techie suggested that the pound symbol be called a hashtag instead, because hashtag sounds way catchier and cooler.
But Twitter shot him down because they thought the idea was for nerds. But we'll just have to call this #Revenge of the Nerds because the hashtag exploded and all of us nerds are still using it today. If you went to someone in the 1960s and told them that the pound sign on their telephone would one day be useful for people sharing memes on smartphones, they would have had no idea what you were talking about. Because Richard Dawkins wouldn't even coin the word meme until 1976, and the only thing a phone could do was let you talk to someone else. But that same person who wouldn't have understood that concept in the 1960s is now your cool aunt hashtagging your baby pictures online. What's weird is that we think of words and symbols as stable because that's how we use them to communicate every day. But both words and the people who articulate them express a certain amount of evolution and instability as symbols are used over time. That evolution can be slow, like the LB sign, which developed over centuries, or rapid, like the hashtag, which took only a handful of years. That's why etymology traces both the changes in words, like spelling and appearance, alongside the changes in human usage over time. And the hashtag is a pretty great example of this. Its shape and meaning had to be stable enough for people to use it in a given era, but it was also capacious enough to encapsulate new concepts as they emerged, even if those concepts rendered older meanings of a word out of date. So, to paraphrase Shrek, words and symbols are like onions. They have layers. So whether it's adding up numbers, measuring weight, marking the end of a code, distinguishing qualities of sound, or even linking together people with similar interests online, this symbol is pretty great for holding things together.